The Celtics are one win away from clinching the 2 spot in the East, but I'm told there's still a chance the 1 seed could be had. Plus, a new collective bargaining agreement has been announced, but how does it affect the Celtics? All of that next on First to the Floor.
Who's going to be first to the floor here? And it was Marcus Smart, as he usually is.
That's not the first time we've seen a superstar in green and white sacrifice the body. Knocked away.
Welcome in to another episode of First to the Floor. Ben Vallis here. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. Joining us on this one, the show's original co-host, Jackson Bauer. Welcome back, Jackson. How you doing, sir?
Am I the original co-host, am I? You beauty. Very well.
The first person other than me to come on the show. So,
True. We had a great chat about, what was it, Andre Drummond, I think, being a real threat against us. So how times change.
Yeah. Greg Monroe might have been brought up at some point as well.
Yeah, certainly.
And of course, back for another one, Jake Eisenberg. How you doing, Jake? Welcome, sir.
Doing good. Monday night with the South Pacific crew. How good.
Absolutely. So good to have everyone back here. And Wayne Spooney, not on this one, just due to the time that we're recording. We're going to have him back on the next one, but we're very excited to welcome back our New Zealand correspondent, Joe. Joe, welcome back, man. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Just come fresh off a 8-week challenge where I lost a grand total of 300 grams, boys. Whee!
Hey, congratulations.
Get some fluids in you, mate. You're going to die.
Bottoms up.
Yeah.
300 grams. It's hard to lose even a gram at our age, so congratulations.
Bloody hard, eh?
Well done.
Jake, you're a youngin', aren't you, Jake? You're under 30, aren't you?
I am for a few more months.
Yeah,
He's
enjoy it, man.
He's about to crest.
Changes.
Yeah.
Don't stop. Don't, like, whatever you're doing that's like healthy, just don't stop it, man. I like stop basketball over the pandemic. Not good, man.
Okay.
It's hard to get it back.
Don't worry. This physique, this temple, it's not going anywhere.
Love to hear it. Now, look, the Celtics playoff destiny is definitely becoming clearer as we enter the final week of the regular season. But before we get into that, the Celtics did pretty handily beat the Jazz since the last time we spoke. And in fact, have now beaten every team in the league at least once. We'll be quick here. Jackson, we'll start with you. What were your overall takeaways from the Jazz game? Or we'll just send it around the room.
Well, geez, beating every team in the league, that's like automatic champions, is it not? Is it
Surely.
not? No.
I think
maybe
one's
not.
gotta
be. Look, I cared so little about that Jazz game, particularly when I saw that Horford and Williams weren't playing again. I'm like, all right, cool. We're going to get eaten on the board. It's going to be one of those. Whatever. We just beat the Bucks by 7,000. It'll be okay. But despite that, we found ourselves in a bit of a game and we pulled it off. And Tatum's play continues, and particularly his shooting continues to rain down. So I was utterly thrilled with that result overall.
Joe,
what did you guys think?
You got to pass the rock.
I mean, I feel like you guys have been riding this. There's been a couple of good results lately, and I feel like your boys are in the moment. And you're real happy about it. For me, the Jazz was just, it's one of those games you could only really lose, and they didn't really. They didn't, Relative to expectations, you could only really lose.
Okay.
I just sort of thought, I was looking for a little bit more killer instinct, a little bit more, foot on the throat, and when we'd get it out to 17, it would just kind of creep back to 12 or 11. It just annoyed me, man. I'm just a real fussy fan these days, eh? Real fair weather.
Like it.
yeah. You guys are gonna hate me by the end of this show, I promise.
There's too much positivity on here anyway.
Yeah,
Precisely.
that's right. Yeah. What do you think, Jake? What do you think of the Jazz game?
I was with Joe in that it was a little frustrating, but I was more just annoyed at the Jazz. I was just like, Taylor Horton Tucker, just like, fuck off. Enough.
Yeah.
Like, this is the
Check his
most
birth certificate, man.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's supposed to be playing in this league, eh? Can you believe it? He's 22.
I know.
Fuck.
That's right.
It should be in an over 35s league, surely.
It was only
that's a rec center body if I've ever seen one.
Yeah.
Only a moment ago, it felt like LeBron was talking about this guy being in the lab coming off a big summer league. But like him, Chris Dunn's had like his 2 best games of his life against the Celtics this season. Just like, guys, and this time of year is weird. because you have a lot of guys are resting, tanking. And so you have guys that are playing for like contracts, like they're literally their lives in the NBA. And that's what it felt like. It was like the Celtics got to 17 and it's like back to back. You guys can't win. And then the Jazz are just like, this is their game 7 in the Garden, doing everything they can. And the Celtics, they was never in doubt, like kind of pretty obvious.
That's the thing. I thought it was, a pretty, like I said, they defeated them handily. And once you hear about the travel issues, and I know that they were like adamant about not making that an excuse, but they got on the plane in Milwaukee the night before. They sat on it for 30 minutes. The pilot was too sick to fly the plane. Glad that he called it.
Somehow these stories get out, Ben. They don't want the excuse, but somehow they get out.
You're absolutely right. But you know me, I buy into these things. I ride the emotional wave. Had to, unfortunately, the arduous task of checking back into a 5-star hotel off the plane, only to fly out the following day. One thing Tatum did mention is that I don't think he'd ever played on a travel day. And decided to play in this game when he wasn't supposed to play, galvanizing the team heading into the playoffs, and got the chillest 39 points I think I've ever seen from a Celtic. The 3-point shot looks to be back, like as we start to sort of, okay, let's stir up some positive takeaways from this game. The 3-point shot for Tatum seems to be back. Small sample size, 2 games, one of them very important. In slogging the Bucks there and then keeping it rolling against the Jazz. I was running, if you're watching on YouTube, the Blake Griffin specific highlights before, courtesy of Timmy on YouTube, on our channel here. And Blake Griffin, I did not expect to fall in love with you, but I am like head over heels for this man. Like he is incredible.
He brings full of
awesome.
ticker.
Yeah, ticker. He brings the energy off the bench, and in this game where maybe there was a malaise about the team, just given, we know that they play down to sub 500 opponents at this point. We know they'd beat some, we're not making excuses, sticking with Joe Mazzulla's stance there. We know there'd been some difficulty just getting to the game back home in Boston. Blake Griffin comes out, he's sliding all over the floor, he's taking all these charges. None of them are called, unfortunately, because the refs were super dodgy. But
the refs were terrible in this game.
Yeah, Blake Griffin, he's out there, he's on the tools, he's having a good time. He's been to Bunnings. He's brought his tools to the game. And he's not conducting the orchestra quite like Marcus the Maestro Smart is, but he is conducting something out there. He's a vibes conductor out there on the court. That's my very analytical.
But you're going to say
he's not cooking the Barbie. He's
brought a sausage to the game.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. He did flop his sausage out in this game, absolutely. Big dick energy there from Blake Griffin. Love to see it.
Like if you told us that we had to play Blake Griffin on a back-to-back because Rob and Al were out and he went 1 for 5 in 25 minutes, you'd be like, oh, Jesus, that must have been rough. No, 12 boards, 5 assists, steal, like instigator, grit, initiator. Mm-hmm. Like there was, he coming off the headbutt moment with Thanasis in the night previous. Like, and I saw some Twitter, Bucks account being like, because all Celtics fans like this bloody cheerleader Thanasis comes on, headbutts this legend of Blake Griffin, and it's like, oh, so no one's gonna talk shit about the grandpa that's ring chasing on the Celtics. Like Blake Griffin has legitimately been a good positive piece for the Celtics this year. He's been like instrumental in at least 5 wins, maybe close to 10 wins.
Can we get IT on that? Can we get IT on that?
I've called him the world's best part-time employee, and I stand by that. He absolutely kills it in a part-time role. The guard rotation in this one, Jake, was interesting. Do you think that's starting to not tell the story, but open the book to the story of what the guard rotation might look like in the playoffs?
Well, so I was looking at the box score, and I noticed that Malcolm Brogden played 31 minutes, 48 seconds, which was more than both Marcus and Derek White. And I was like, that feels like an anomaly. And so I just went back and looked at a bunch of box scores. Like, yeah, Derek White, Malcolm Brogden very rarely plays more minutes than Derek or Marcus. And then that sent me down another rabbit hole of just like looking at the point guard, the Malcolm, Marcus, Derek rotation, as we are sickos. So season long, Marcus Smart, 32.1, Derek White, 28.3, which is just criminal. The fact that that's his season long minutes, and then Brogden at 25.9. Last 15 games, we're trending in a different direction. Marcus down to 30.9, Derek up to 29.9, and Brogden up to 27.5. But then these last 5 games, Marcus is now playing less minutes than Derek White at 27.9. Derek's up to the leader in 29.8, and Brogden stayed kind of flat in the last 5 games at 27. And I feel like it kind of coincides, like Marcus coming back from the injury, us being like, whoa, dude, just pump the brakes. We have Derek White. Your defense is definitely looking shaky. Let's just shave 2-3 minutes off. And the defense has definitely been better in that stretch. And Brogden, first time in his career, he's played more than 65 games since his rookie season. It's like this minutes plan. I haven't liked how they managed it with Rob, but they've done it perfectly with Brogden. He's playing incredible over the last week. Gritty Brogden in the Spurs game. I think Joe Ingles is lost his Australian citizenship after the Bucks game, and then
he's from New Zealand, right?
Yeah. Sorry, Joe. Yeah,
We'll take him.
We've sent him over.
Joe Ingles.
No, I'm just kidding.
I would never 100% claim that guy.
And then yesterday, Brogden.
Like Ben Simmons.
Oh, I know. Don't stop. Yeah,
he's American. He's no talk.
19, 3, 7 assists. He's been balling, and it feels like Joe, this terrible coach everybody keeps talking about, seems to be some tinkering going on.
Pulling some strings, you reckon, Jake?
I don't know. It seems to be working.
Pushing the buttons, pulling the strings.
We've been calling for it.
Master of the puppets.
Joe Jackson, are you for or against that point from Jake? Joe,
I think you're talking about. Isn't Michael Jackson's dad called Joe Jackson? Or
Joe Jackson, yeah.
There have been so many Joes in the last 30 seconds. I can't keep up. With Joe Ingles, Joe over here, Joe Maz, Joe Jackson is in here now. I ain't arguing.
I'm
with
actually
the
bare
numbers.
feet, funnily enough, but that's a little.
Well, not arguing with the minutes. I take Jake's word for that. That sounded very well, thoroughly researched. I think it's probably more indicative of maybe just ramping some guys down, less load going into the playoffs and whatnot. But we're right. You're right. We've been kind of calling for more Derek White minutes. We've been calling for a reduction of Marcus Smart minutes just based on form. And now we're starting to see it. So whether that is, continues into the playoffs or whether that's just, some load management, on the fly, I don't know, but Wizards game aside, whatever the coaching has been better and has been resulting in better performances overall. So I'm for it, whatever's happening. Totally.
Jake, 100% not getting the memo that we're just making stuff up here, man. Not like actual research, bro.
Well, I'll do the research and then you can just vibe off the back of it.
Yeah.
What does this mean to you? Like you're the tea leaves guy. These are the facts. These are the stats. Does this mean anything going into the playoffs?
They're 3 very different players, eh? So it is interesting to see their minutes kind of squishing together a little bit. I'm kind of at this point where I'm like, at the season, I just have my favorites and I have my guys on they're in my bad books.
So Brogden hasn't redeemed himself in your eyes yet, Joe?
List.
Look, the guy shoots a lot of shots that go in. You can't deny that.
It's a good quality.
It's a great quality. It's very helpful for winning games. But, I guess I'm just like a bit of a basketball hipster in some ways, and I just like different things. Makes come and go, man, but the aggression or the pressure to mistake ratio must stay the same, and that's why I love Derek, man. He's my guy now.
Does that mean that Grant has kind of? We're probably getting off track here, but
Grant's gone down in my books. I still love him.
We can't talk bad about Grant. We'll get called out on Twitter again.
Yeah.
We get called out on Twitter.
We got called out by a Grant super fan.
The Grant Defense Army.
I think I smoothed it over. So
it was onto us.
Yeah, it's all good.
I love
anyway,
Grant.
Sorry
I love Grant. I just, the mistakes. I just, I feel like I've said this a million times, but like Grant is like me. He has the same strengths and the same weaknesses. And every time I see him like flailing away on a drive, I'm like, oh, don't do it. You're embarrassing the both of us.
All who possess this basketball on-court archetype. Good point. Good analysis there, Jake, as far as the minutes crunch there for the 3
shot,
guards.
Jake.
I like it.
Brogger,
Yeah.
he's really starting to let loose a little bit and like show the true value of that acquisition. I'm not going to call it like a redemption year for the Celtics medical team because anything could still happen, but like it's beginning to look that way in the way that there's been this like sort of preservation of Brogden. Rob's looking maybe healthier than he has all year as well at the right time. And, you know, the way that Brogden was able to break the Bucks and the Jazz down off the dribble and like generate really good looks predominantly for himself just gives us
no kidding. That guy's such a hungus, man.
he had 7 assists against the Jazz here, so like he can move the ball as well. He's like he's a one pass guy. He's not like a swing guy.
Yeah, get out of here with your nuance, Ben. Get out of here with that.
He can penetrate and get good looks for himself or get good looks for someone else who cuts at the right time. And the rest of the team are vibing with him in ways that they weren't in the first half of the season in terms of cutting off of those Brogden drives at the right time. And the right time is heading into the playoffs. And speaking of heading into the playoffs, the Sixers lost to the Milwaukee Bucks today, which leaves the Sixers now 3 games behind the Boston Celtics, and the Celtics own the tiebreaker. The magic number for the Celtics to clinch the 2 spot is 1 of the 4 games remaining. They need to win 1 of those 4 games, and they will clinch that 4 spot. And they just happen to be playing the Philadelphia 76ers on Tuesday night. Meanwhile, the Bucks are 2 games ahead of the Celtics. The Bucks play the Wizards, Bulls, Grizzlies, and Raptors, pardon me, in their 4 remaining games for a Celtics 1 seed scenario to occur. The Bucks would need to go, these are the 3 different scenarios, 2-2 while the Celtics go 4-0, 1-3 while the Celtics go 3-1, or 0-4 while the Celtics go 2-2.
So it's like mirror image. Is what you're saying.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Mm-hmm. The Celtics, they play the Sixers, the Raptors again, and the Hawks. The Sixers is a road game in Philly. The rest of them are home games for the Celtics. Guys, what do you think is the ideal scenario? And there's 2, and I welcome you to introduce a third alternate scenario. Number 1, the go for it scenario. Plow ahead at maximum effort, fight to win all 4 games and hope the Bucks drop a couple. Scenario 2, load management. Prioritize rest and physical playoff readiness. Assume you'll grab a win throughout the course of the last 4 games. Jackson, of those scenarios, or again, welcome an additional alternate scenario, how would you like to see the end of the final week of the regular season play out for the Celtics?
Well, I'm going to have to go an alternative plan just because I'm a fence sitter. I think you go absolute hell for leather against the Sixers and you remind them that we are their daddies and they are a fake contender, and you put the squeeze on them just like you did against the Bucks in their building, beat them by 50. And it's a bit ambitious, but do that, and then you just punt the last 3 games. Who gives a toss? It's the Raptors and it's the Hawks. If you feed them wins, that potentially messes up the Miami being in the number 7 spot or anything like that. I like the idea of just introducing a little bit of heat onto the Heat in that respect. I don't think it's going to play out that way. I think the way it's going to go is they're probably going to play full strength maybe until the very last game, pull everyone out, and we're just going to end up with the 2nd seed. But for me, we'll probably circle back to this point later on. But I just think the 1 seed is just largely irrelevant at this stage. So I'm prioritizing health above all.
Mm-hmm.
What about just tanking? What about just tanking and trying to get the 3 seed, and then we get Brooklyn?
We would need Philly to go 4-0, and we would need to go 0-4 for that to happen.
Yeah, they're useless, so they wouldn't do that.
I honestly think that we're too deep for that to actually happen. Like our garbage time lineup against the Bucks includes like either one of Derek or Malcolm, and like Cornette and Blake, Hauser. We're like legitimately quality team. So I actually don't think it would be possible. I think I've been like Galaxy every morning. I come on the Slack channel and I'm running through like 4 different scenarios of what I want to happen for each day. And it gets more and more. It gets either more complicated each day or less. It's just a mess.
Is one of the scenarios Ben asking you for a quickie?
No, that's a special request reserved for you, Joe.
Ask every day. Eventually, someone will say yes.
Exactly. You break them down. So Jackson, I think there's two. Yeah, the remind the Sixers that their daddy is obviously a great option. Can't go wrong there. The other option is Galaxy Brain style. You rest that game, which they won't do because it's national game against the Sixers. But you rest that game. Yeah, you rest that game. That is the game that will be the closest from a betting favorite line perspective. That'll be like the most even matchup. So you punt that one, and then you turn it up for the Raptors games, and you push them. You make sure they stay in the 9-10 zone, and then you punt the Hawks game, which makes them stay in the 8 spot and gives which gives you the smallest chance.
This is Galaxy Brain.
This is Galaxy Brain, yeah.
Of the smallest chance of
Where's
the
the
Hawks.
flow chart for this?
This has been me for 2 weeks now. Is Charlie Day trying to figure this shit out?
Pepe Silva.
He gives you a small chance because it's a sudden death game. Atlanta goes into Miami and beats them, and that gives us the Hawks. So that's by far the best option of all the 4 play-in teams. I'm actually getting scared of the Bulls. The Bulls have kind of been cooking lately, and they've actually been a team that gives us a bit of trouble. Levine and DeMar that can actually go off. I think we would still win the series, but that's kind of emerges pretty clear as the most difficult of the 4 matchups. So we can't control that at all. That's just up to the basketball gods. We can make sure the Raptors stay down, bring up the Hawks, give them a free win on the last day of the regular season, and give us a chance to get them in the first round because that is just the easiest first round. Like we would score 140 per game in that series and it would be a sweep. I watched the Mavs-Hawks game today, and it was just comical. Just both teams just shitting all over themselves for like 3 hours.
Could be us.
Yeah, we need that. Yeah.
That's a lot there.
Yeah, there is a lot there. Sorry, Joe. I'll let you go, and then I'll jump in.
No, I don't have anything, man.
Well, I do think that the basketball gods could be angered, and that's like surely there's enough sample size with like messing with the game, angering the basketball gods, and an ensuing negative outcome that we should just play to win, right? Like just play our best basketball, keep heading in the direction that we're heading in, and let things fall where they may. And that starts with going out and reminding the Sixers rather that we own them, and then just playing out the rest of the season. If we want to win, if we want to rest players to preserve them for the playoffs, that's fine. That's not a basketball god angering act in my mind. So that's a good avenue to go down. But I don't think that we should get too crazy with like tanking games against like particular opponents to affect their seeding within the playoffs, the play-in rather, or anything like that. I think that's going a little bit too deep, and we know from history that's what rustles the jimmies of the basketball gods and gets people into trouble. So the one thing I would keep in mind is that the Nuggets, Russell the Jimmy Butlers, if you will. The Nuggets are 52-26 at the moment, so there's some incentive to play and have a better record than them, so that if we were to see them in the finals, for example, please, as much as that would torture my soul because of my Nuggets friend Dice, that we would have a better record and thus home court advantage.
The fucking Warriors, dude. They kick our butts in the finals, and then the Nuggets don't even play Jokic today, and the Warriors still lose on the road, making us just like that extra bit of motivation to play another game. I will say that the Sixers and then the next Raptors game is a back-to-back, so it does make sense to just do like a massive go all out in the Sixers game kind of thing, and then rest because health is by far and away the most important thing. Like. It's not even close. The ones give me full health over the 1 seed like every day of my life.
Yeah, just win the Sixers game, show them who's boss, and then shut it down. I mean, to the
maybe
extent
play the second Raptors game.
Yeah, like you want to keep guys ramped up, right, and ready for like we talk about playoff readiness. There's playoff readiness in terms of like health and preservation, and there's playoff readiness in terms of like ramping people up and getting them accustomed to higher minutes and things like that. And I put it to the Celtics medical staff to sort that out better than I might be possibly capable of. Anything else on how the end of the season might play out, or playoff matchups, or anything like that, guys, before we move on to this new CBA announcement?
Just energy for the Hawks. That's it. That's all I got.
Energy for the Hawks. Yeah, I don't know if you're going to come back to this. I'll get it real quick. I'm not that asked about the 1 seed, to be
No.
perfectly honest. Maybe against, if it ends up being the Nuggets in the finals, I think altitude would be a factor, particularly if you've like played multiple 7-game series, etc., etc. But I mean, like, I don't like to like look back into the past and use that as something to determine the future. But I mean, just look at last year's playoffs. We swept the Nets. Like, we finished that off on their home court. Game 6 against the Bucks, which was as must win as basically a Game 7 as you could get. One of Jason Tatum's best performances ever. Game 7 against Miami, we won. I know it didn't feel like a win, but we got him. And Game 1 of the finals, we won.
Yep.
Like, these are all like very, very notable road wins that we got. It doesn't really matter. I don't think it matters one iota whether we're home or whether we're on the road. If that 3 ball's not going in and everyone looks lackadaisical and it's like the Wizards or, Jazz round 1 all over again, forget it. I don't care like if we're playing on the moon or in Boston or in the center of the earth. Like, it's not going to work out. So it's health above all for me. If you can massage a scenario where you get your ideal opponent with like a thoughtful tank job here and there, fine. But like, at the end of the day, focus on what we do best. Get yourselves ready. If we win, we win. If we lose, we lose. Who cares? We're in the playoffs. Just get ready.
Fuck, Jackson's ready to just that KG that KG video of like, we got the AKs. We're just like, that's the energy I got right there. I love that. Jackson's fucking ready to go.
So it does unfortunately look like we are going to, unless there's a tectonic, that's the wrong word, unless there's a massive shift in this final week, that we are going to match up against the Miami Heat, unfortunately, which is something that we've been psychologically, well, I'll rule you out of this, Jake, but psychologically trying to avoid all season. I feel like the players feel like that way as well, because the Heat have been one of those teams that have kind of like mucked us up, even in this season. Joe, how do you feel about that potential or even likely playoff matchup in the first round against the Heat?
I hate it. I think the Heat have got a very real chance to beat us.
Nah, stop it.
No, man.
Stop it.
Look at it. Look, if basketball championships or the NBA championships are won by like playing 82 consecutive games and combining the aggregate score of all of those games, then I'd feel great about the Celtics' chances. I'd think we're the favorites. But man, when it comes down to like squeaky bum time, like the Heat are better. And this is the issue for the Celtics, man. People got to brace themselves for this, Yeah. The Celtics,
what, a first round loss?
I'm not predicting a loss, but man, if it goes 7 and Jimmy Butler's lining up a pretty crucial shot with like under 2 minutes left, I'm not going to be surprised at all.
He'll miss again, won't he?
I wouldn't feel
comfortable.
The Celtics. Look, here's the thing, man. Like the Celtics. I'm going to make my big point now, and then I'll probably have nothing to say for the rest of the podcast. But right,
all right, here we go.
Well, okay. So the Celtics have, I think, the best points differential in the league, right?
Yeah,
and I think it's deserved. And I think I'm on record as saying, basically the Celtics, like the Celtics are going to the only team that can beat the Celtics is the Celtics, right? And the reason they beat themselves, to me, is too much high variance offense in high leverage situations. It really it piles on the mental pressure on you, and that's when games like series are won and lost in like little games, right? Like it doesn't matter if you blow the team out by 20 and then they come back and beat you by 1. It's 1-1. And that's what happens in playoff series. And that is the reason to worry about the Celtics' chances. There's too much reliance on high variance offense. And it drives me crazy hearing Joe Mazzulla talk about how the whole point is to get, as many open threes as you can. Nah, bro. The point is to get more points than the other guys, right? And you've got to play the game that's in front of you. And earn threes go in, man. You earn threes go in, right? But not just any old bloody 3 will go in. You've got to beat the other team. And low variance offense, which is not a strength of Jason Tatum's, is a potential problem. That said, Celtics have the best points differential in the league, which means that they're probably the best team. Okay? But man, they can beat themselves. And Miami's a team that can just expose that kind of weakness. So there you go. End rant.
That's the concern, right?
I think you're fucking crazy.
Jake's like a
I think you're crazy.
A militant optimist. So let's hear it, Jake.
I'm not an optimist at all. I'm a reality based person to quote the great Ben Oliver. The Miami Heat have been awful this year. They are the 25th ranked offense. You know what? If you're 25th ranked anything, that means the only teams you're better than at that specific thing are Houston, San Antonio, Charlotte, Detroit, and Orlando. That basically means you're last. If you're 26th or 25th, that means you're last because those other teams are trying to lose.
First, you're last.
If you're right, legit. Like compared to last season, the Celtics are a significantly better team. They've been playing like half speed for half the season, and the Heat they were the number 1 seed, and it didn't even feel real last season. They were the number 1 seed last season, and they just like smoke and mirrored their way to a potential game going ahead by 1 point, giving the Celtics another possession. People tend to forget they'd have 11 seconds left after Jimmy Butler, was always going to clank that one. He's a terrible shooter. The Miami Heat are not a good basketball team. You know what this reminds me of? The Miami Heat beat the Milwaukee Bucks in the bubble, and it was like a massive, massive, massive upset. And the next season, it was like, oh no, they've drawn the Heat. These are all these demons. They played one close game, game 1. Miami pulled it out. Milwaukee pulled it out, and then it was a sweep. Jimmy Butler had less points than fucking Bryn Forbes. Like, there's only so much that Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and Eric Spoelstra can do when they're playing Gabe Vincent and Max Strus and Omer. Like, this team is dog shit. It's like 3 real players and then all undrafted players. Like,
they might be dog shit, mate, but watch us step in them like 3 games out of 7.
But okay, look, it could go to 6. It could go to 6, maybe. But Miami could also would not shock me if they didn't even make it out of the play-in. Like, that's how bad they've been this year. They've played like 50 something clutch games this year, and like against awful teams. And Joe, like, the Celtics have the second best clutch win-loss in the whole league this year, despite having a couple of questionable losses.
Yeah, but hang on, that's because they get themselves into clutch games when they have no business being in clutch games, like the Memphis game where the 12-point lead with 5 points with 5 minutes left dwindles down to 6.
Yeah,
the Celtics have bad bloody habits. Hey, we've got to be real about this, guys.
Yeah, but
they're a really good team. They're a really good team, and if you play 82 games, they're going to have a great points differential. But I'm telling you, this team loses the plot and really important points.
No question.
So brace yourselves. It could go wrong.
And they're going to lose the plot at least once per series. But the good news is when they play their best, no team can touch them. It's actually not close. Best net rating, best point differential, best only team with top 5 in both defense and offense. Today is the first time the Bucks actually beat a healthy contender all season long. Like, they are the classic regular season team. And if Kevin Durant's toes not on the line, they don't have a title, and they're a completely different story.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
Keeping the receipts, Jake.
Mate,
Jake, he's got too many bloody facts.
Damn those facts. Joe, wasn't the win against the Bucks enough? It seems like it was the case for everybody, for the majority of Celtics fans, enough to sort of hammer home like that they can flip that switch, that they absolutely, and the record against the top 3 seed teams in either conference, like, haven't they shown enough to demonstrate that they can and will turn it up against big opponents or in big playoff series?
You don't have to convince me they've got the capacity to blow out anyone. Like, they clearly can do it. That's how you build this massive points differential over the course of a season. The issue I have is low variance offense and high leverage moments. And the further you get down to the end of the season, the more high leverage moments you have. They occur at like so many points during a game. And I have real concerns about our ability to do it. Now, that said, we're like, and if you want to say we're the favorites, I'm like, I guess so, But I'm just telling you, man, this team's got
time.
It's had a lot of really bad losses, and those really bad losses are because we just don't have Kane Williamson coming in to steady the ship, Yeah,
I just think there's a lot of
what I wouldn't get for Ben Pepper.
Yeah. There's a lot of flaws. There's a lot of flaws. Like, the teams you have to go through, like, it would blow my mind if the Celtics lost a series. The Sixers, high leverage moments, like, there's no question. There's no great team in the NBA this year. Like, the only team I'd actually be scared of going into a series would be the Warriors.
The Warriors,
But like
yes.
The
Bucks,
Warriors.
the Bucks have way more issues on offense than the Celtics. Like they went through like a 5-minute drought today against the Sixers in a game they won by 20, because once they get moving and the Sixers once they let go of the rope, Harden, like you talk about high leverage moments.
Yeah, we're not worried about the Sixers.
Yeah,
We're gonna beat them. Yeah,
yeah, and
just sorry to interrupt here, but
all right,
I'd
yeah,
say
go, Jason.
I agree
Someone
with
jump in.
both of you in the classic fence sitter move.
Yeah,
we are
Classic
way,
Jackson.
way better than the Heat. They are one of the worst teams in the playoffs. It's precisely why I'm worried about them, because we always shit the bed against a crap team.
That's a really good point.
I think what will happen is we'll probably lose game one. Everyone will lose their minds. It's going to be like turn your internet off for 24 hours, and we'll probably win the next 4. And we're like, everything's fine again. And then the same demons will come back in round 2. And it's just going to be one of those uncomfortable horror show playoff runs that we'll probably ultimately end up going to get through to the East Conference Finals with.
Yes.
But it's not
You just got to accept it. Accept the any love in your life. No one's perfect.
Like I got Jake's the angel, Joe's the demon, and I'm like, I find myself going, I both know what you're saying. You're both correct.
Love it. Yeah, I actually think I think that them being a demon in round 1, even though they're bad, is actually going to have them ready to go. I think the Celtics would still take them seriously because of how much pain they've caused them. So
much galaxy brain, bro.
Yeah, man.
That's what we do. That's what we do on the show. It's all about the galaxy brain. All right, we have to move on just with respect to trying to wrap this thing up within a reasonable time frame. The NBA and the NBPA, it was announced recently, agreed on a new CBA, a collective bargaining agreement. And if you will, with some patience, let me read out some quote-unquote highlights from this announcement. First one being the league is implementing a second salary cap apron, $17.5 million over the tax line, and those teams will lose several key team-building mechanisms, including the taxpayer mid-level exception, utilizing cash in trades, moving first-round picks in drafts that are 7 years away, signing free agent players in the buyout market, and taking on more money than is being sent out in trades, which is a huge shift. The NBA is also tying eligibility for postseason awards such as All-NBA and MVP to a mandatory 65 games played. The 65-game minimum does come with some conditions, and we don't know what those conditions are at this stage. Moving forward, an in-season tournament, which sounds really exciting, could arrive as soon as the 2023-24 season. The event will include a pool play games baked into the regular season schedule starting in November, with 8 teams advancing to a single elimination tournament in December. The Final Four will be held at a neutral site, with Las Vegas prominent in the discussion, and a few other highlights to rattle off here. An increase to the upper limits on extensions from 120%, an increase to 140%, which could have a significant impact on the futures of stars like Celtics forward Jaylen Brown, according to the ESPN article announcing this new CBA. Weed, marijuana, no longer a prohibited substance.
The real victory of this.
There we go.
Thing.
Yeah. Suddenly the buyout market, I feel like has expanded with guys like.
There's no way that's getting enforced though. There's no way that's been enforced at any point throughout the history of the NBA.
Yes.
Maybe when Reagan was in charge, but no chance.
No,
it's just
no
been
chance.
made official.
Yeah.
There is a lot more, and we'll leave the link to the ESPN.com article in the show notes. But it's recommended reading if you want to have just like a general handle on what's going on. A question to you guys, Jake, I'll start with you. How does this affect the Celtics? There's a lot going on here. There's quite a shift in some of the sort of the basic rules as far as the salary cap and the way that teams can be managed. How does this affect the Boston Celtics?
Man, Wick must be secretly pumped. You can only spend so much money now. You can't just keep adding and adding and adding.
Right?
Yeah, he's like, oh no, I can't add another $6 million for another Gallinari type. I actually think this, obviously it hurts the Celtics in a vacuum because we are one of the teams that I think are above the second apron. But I think it might help the Celtics in the context of where the NBA is at right now, because the Bucks are above the apron as well. I think they're maybe second or maybe they're third after the Clippers and the Warriors. The Bucks roster is low-key getting old
Oh yeah.
quick. Like outside of Giannis, there's not a player on the team that's like, oh, I guess Grayson Allen, but like Middleton, Drew over 30, Brooks are up there. Like their team's quite old. And so like making it difficult for them to add stuff, I think could low-key be a big deal.
Jackson,
Yeah.
Joe, any thoughts?
Well, I mean,
Joe,
this
please,
is
I'm
to me the
partly
most
uninformed.
interesting. Oh, sorry, go Jackson, mate.
No, go, Joe.
I was begging you to go for it first.
Please.
Oh. Well, haven't exactly digested the whole lot. I think some of the changes made sense, like they made them as a percentage of the salary cap, as opposed to fixed amounts, which is always a good idea. As we see in legislation, when you tie things to, like, you try and make a nominal figure in a bit of tax legislation, it always works out terribly because inflation kicks in and the thresholds that were relevant when the legislation was drafted are no longer relevant. Anyway, I'll just put that train back on the track. So that's a good change. I don't know, like, I sometimes wonder if the ideal format for the NBA is just hard cap, no max salaries. Like that's and this is almost a step towards that, it seems, if you're increasing the maximum raises, right, to 140% and implementing a second apron. I didn't quite follow the mechanism by which the second apron will kick in. Is it just if you're got X amount of salary, you're subject to certain restrictions, can't have MLE? Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
17.5
your biannual, your mid-level, something else as well if you're above the average.
Yeah, that affects acquisition from outside, right? It doesn't affect your ability to retain your own players, which I think is
That's the point.
Like as fans, we kind of, I think in general, want guys to, like, teams to retain their players, and I think the player movement thing's gotten a bit out of control lately. And I think it's made the league a little bit less fun. You need player movement, but it's just too much, eh?
Yeah.
100%. Player movement's fun, eh? Because, like, we don't get anything like that in our sports the sports that I follow down here, right? Like, there's no trades in rugby, we don't have an equivalent of that. It's quite fun, but only within limits, eh? It's like a sugar hit, you can only have so much of it before you coma out. And then the gambling thing, just a dumb idea.
It feels a little.
What's the gambling thing? Sorry,
players can own shares in gambling companies. It's just like, what could possibly?
I know,
and shares in their team as well.
I'm actually in favor of that. I think
makes
that's
sense.
cool. Yeah. But gambling companies, gambling, everyone has a different threshold, in their personal lives. But
Different
I promise you want players as far away from gambling as you possibly can.
Agreed.
Like it's just gonna shroud things and conjecture. Yeah. And I'm not in favor of it at all.
It's just very. You can imagine like Jalen Brown. It's a terrible example. Blake Griffin bet on my same game parlay of 2 points, 1 assist, and 3 rebounds, and like
2 dunks,
and 2 dunks to give you plus 10,000 odds.
Man, hey, I tell you what, I saw an ad, and I don't know if it was fake or not, but like Brendan McCullum is like, who's the coach? He's a New Zealand cricket player. Blah blah blah. Who cares?
Yeah.
Anyway,
sorry,
coach of England, and he's like an advertisements for like a England betting thing. And like, if you know the story of Brendan McCullum and Chris Kent, it's like, what the hell's going on there, man? Anyway, point is, man, gambling is like the game has to be hermeneutically sealed off from gambling. Otherwise, gambling doesn't work, and the game starts to not work. Yeah. I'm just so opposed to it.
Yeah, I think Cronje was born too soon. That's all I'll say.
Hansi.
I think the whole mid-season tournament is purely just to get more gambling in. I think it is the most pointless thing I've ever heard. Like, they're trying to be the UEFA Champions League, and that's all well and good, except you don't have any clubs from any other leagues and or countries to play against. It's like, oh, look, we drew the Raptors. Wow, or we're playing the Lakers like an extra time. Like, I can see the fun in it. And like, look, if the Celtics make that Final Four in Vegas, of course I'm going to be up for it. I'm going to treat that tournament like it's more important than every single NBA title like rolled together. Don't you worry about it. But it's just clearly just to get more gambling. They're holding it in Vegas. Well, it's rumored to be held in Vegas. It's going to be a neutral venue. But I bet it's somewhere that allows gambling. So yeah, that I think is a whole bunch of jive. As far as I know, like it'll help the Celtics as far as like the increases are concerned, because I think that gives Jaylen Brown a much more lucrative offer to sign with the Celtics if he doesn't make All NBA. I think the Jaylen Brown contract saga is probably probably going to go beyond this offseason, All NBA or not. I just have a feeling in my stomach it's just gonna be bad. But anyway, that option is now available to him. I don't know. I don't know. It's probably just being skeptical, but like I don't know. There's just something that says to him,
who the hell's watching?
Carl's up.
The US is waking up.
How long before we have our first gambling? Was that scandal or something like that?
Yeah. I think it's like 20 past 7 a.m. on the east coast of the States right now. So people are waking up.
Carl's up early, getting his first of the floor in.
Yeah, wow.
Great way to start the day. So on Jaylen Brown, he would now be eligible for a 4-year, $190 million extension with a first-year salary of $43 million, which is $25 million more in total than previously allowed, but still way less than what Brown would be eligible for, what Jaylen would be eligible for if he were to make All NBA. And if he doesn't make All NBA this year, and we're going to continue to campaign as
he's going to
personally
he's
as well.
He'll make All NBA.
Like, he could make All NBA next year and still be eligible for that.
Yeah.
But obviously we want him to make it this year so that we can just supermax extension him, offer him an undeniable amount of money. And then just like close the book on that and move forward. I think we all want both the Jays, regardless of the cost, on board at this point. The other thing is
you like the tournament,
make him
Ben.
an offer
Wait.
he can't refuse.
Yeah. Exactly, that's right.
That's right.
And Ben, why do you like
Godfather offers all round?
Ben? I want to hear why you like the tournament.
I just like games with high importance, and if there's something more at stake, like it's an 82-game season, and I love that they've baked it into that and not added additional games. Obviously, there's an additional game, an 83rd game for the two, like quote-unquote winners of that tournament. But to add extra spiciness to otherwise like boring regular season games, I think is great. The $500,000 like award per player, it's going to mean a lot to half the roster on either team. That's going to be an incentive. And what do we see out of guys like, I'm sure we won't have Peyton Pritchard around next year, but that level of player, what do we see out of those guys during those games because of that added level of importance and significance based on these, the mid-season tournament? So give me a reason to be like,
Lou Dort, OKC, Boston. It's
it's the head.
Look,
it's the mid-season tournament final on ESPN HBO show.
Give me that. I want that in my life. That's why I'm in full support of the mid-season tournament.
It's like 25 and under, like 0 All-Star appearances. Like you can have only a certain amount of minutes with your stars to play, and not like the bench guys have to play.
Oh, it'll be like Olympic soccer.
Yeah, Olympic soccer. Yeah.
You can nominate one old overage player to come in.
Exactly.
So he's Blake Griffin with JD Davidson, Kelly, and whoever ends up on the team next year. Berger and maybe. We didn't talk about there's now a third two-way spot as well too, which
yes.
I think will have
so we're gonna get
positive.
We're gonna get to that.
Total of 6 ways.
We are. Yeah.
Six
ways in total. The math checks out on that. So just quickly, does this make so that the abolition of the MLE for folks like us, well above that additional tax apron now? Jake, does this make the Grant Williams extension more likely? Surely, right? Because where else is the talent coming from? We have no more exceptions.
It makes the whole Grant asset management very, very important. Whether it's our, Grant becoming the player we kind of thought he was going to become after the playoffs last season, is it going to be what we use as our kind of last move with this current core? I mean that, Ben, from a sign and trade perspective, not a keeping Grant point of view. So let's call it 15 million plus Pritchard's 4 million plus Moose's 3.5. That gets you to 22.5. So that's like a potential move for a pretty serious salary, pretty serious move, or you just hope that Grant is the guy, because whatever you do, you either need Grant to become the guy we think he can still become, or they got to flip it into like another really, really good player and maximize this window, because they're going to be limited with the amount of moves they can make. So it becomes very, very important. We've said a million times, massive playoffs for Grant.
Huge. Yeah.
Joe,
We need him.
yeah, number one Grant stan.
Joe
I love
Jackson,
Grant.
any thoughts?
Yeah,
Look, I'd like to keep Grant, but if Grant wants $20 million, then I mean, put it this way, he's got a great opportunity to prove his worth in the playoffs, which is, I think, the only reason you're really keeping him around at this stage is because we have it on record what he can do to the likes of Giannis, etc. So, I mean, I would love him to stay. I am a big Grant fan, despite what you may have heard on this podcast. You know, I'm talking to you on Twitter, whoever your name is. But no, I'd love to have Grant here. And if the CBA like, you know, makes like kind of limits his options or makes it, you know, more viable for him to sign with us, then great. I'm happy for it. All for it.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
Well, I think the thing with Grant specifically, right? It's all about acceptance of role, and he's great when he plays his role, his defined role on his team, and he's going to be great if he signs for a contract that's commensurate with that role. If he signs for a contract that's outside that role, it's not going to go that well. He's not a creator off the dribble, you know. He's
As much as he tries to be.
yeah, he's got to cool it on the fast breaks. I just love his game though. Like, for all his flaws, for all his flaws, I just love it. You know, in a way that I'm a bit like, Brogden, don't really like what you do.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it's just irrational.
Yeah, that's where you lose me a little bit.
Maybe playoff Grant, but this season Grant does not fit the same.
I have my opinions, man. I have my opinions, and I
That's for
stick
sure.
with them. Even and I just rage against all sensible judgment.
Someone's got to do it.
All right, so the upcoming schedule, the Celtics have 4 games remaining in the season. Philly, Tuesday night, Boston time, then the Raptors again, and then the Hawks to finish things up. It sounds like, you know, we've kind of already talked about this just by the essence of the podcast so far, but win against Philly, just like demoralize them, get that one win to lock down the 2 seed, and then just not shut it down, but just take it easy for the rest of the season, and, you know, with the emphasis on playoff readiness and health readiness heading into the postseason. Jackson, do you view the rest of the regular season differently at all, or are you pretty much aligned with that approach?
I care so little at this point. I am just dying for the playoffs to start, and obviously, I even though like the idea of facing Brooklyn as opposed to Miami is slightly more comforting, although like Michael Bridges, the last 2 times we've played him, has slaughtered us. So
They're better. They can switch everything, which turns us into ISO ball. That would be so much worse than Miami, in my opinion.
true, but I just think they're cursed because they have Ben Simmons on their team. I don't think they're going anywhere. But
Kind of.
That's
They
my
kind of
own
Jake,
juju.
you got to factor that in, Jake.
But
You
he's
gotta
not
factor that in.
He's barely there.
I
He's
know.
He's barely there.
His waft hangs over them, I'm sure. And
Yeah, like a bad fart.
Like a
Yeah.
bad fart, all right.
It will. So, but at this stage, I would love to beat Philly because I love beating Philly no matter what the circumstances or what day it is. But honestly, just start the playoffs, get there healthy. I'm fine. Whatever you want to give me, 4-0, 0-4, 2-2, doesn't matter. Just get to the playoffs healthy.
Two more games where we play serious, and I want to. You say you don't care now, but it's going to be like 8 minutes before tip and against Philly, and it's going to be like I will die if we don't win this game.
I'll be distracted at my desk at work watching the second Raptors game. Go like, come on, you bastards! But like,
yeah.
objectively now, I just don't care.
Yeah.
What was the over for the Celtics? I feel like it was like right around 54, 55.
Yeah, 54 and a half.
54 and a half. So we've got to win this one to get the over. Yeah.
Never in doubt.
Oh, that'll be good. Tick that off, you know.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to happen. The die's cast. We're going to win one game. Milwaukee's going to win another game, and we're not going to catch them, and Philly's not going to catch us. And it's like Jackson says, let's just get on with it.
Yeah. So if you're going to win one, like beat the bastards, beat the 76ers,
Yeah.
show them who's
Stick it to
boss. Yeah,
Look,
absolutely.
The Sixers are not in a good place right now, and
Love it.
Like
Love to see
if Jason Tatum
Total
continues
disarray.
his 3-point shooting thing into Philly, like that's just gonna feel awful. The whole James Harden thing. Like the only way Philly can kind of be really good is if James Harden's playing at like this 20-point, 12 assist guy. And the Celtics just have like 6 dudes that can guard him one-on-one that he can't get past. And so if he can't create advantages, it's just night-night.
And most importantly, he's a loser.
He also is a loser. No leverage moments.
Love it. All right, let's wrap it up there on James Harden being a loser. That is going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for joining us. If you enjoy the show, a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts really, really helps. A rating on Spotify, like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. It's all really helpful. We'll be back with another pod later in the week. Jackson, Jake, Joe. It's a lot of J's.
I just realized.
Lovely work, guys.
Hell yeah.
Until next time, go Celtics.